Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today I want to talk about setting up your bass. I get a lot of emails and a lot of questions about this all the time, and I thought I would give my take on it. As a matter of fact, my co-producer James sent me an email from a couple days ago. It's from Chubby M. Dear Sir, how do you set up action? My action is so high you can pass a double Whopper with cheese under it. No pickles. I hate pickles. Anyway, I hope you respond. I have a tryout for a Partridge Family tribute band tomorrow and need all the help I can get. You are the beat bass player ever. That you, Mr. Patitucci. I think he means you are the best bass player ever. Thank you, Mr. Patitucci. He has me mixed up with the great John Patitucci. But obviously this guy is deranged because everybody knows that the greatest bass player in the world is Jeff Berlin. How do I know this? He told me himself. Hey guys, we're back. Enough of that comedy. So, first thing we have to do is get your bass in tune. And like a small tuner like this Unitune is actually pretty cool. They're like 30 bucks. Use them all the time. It's not the Polytune, it just tunes one note at a time. And that's all I need on the bass. And just clip it on, it's ready to go. It's hard to get the right angle with this camera. Hope you can see all this. Okay, so pretty basic. So first of all, get your bass in tune. And there we go. Oh, a little sharp there. What I'm doing there is I'm just touching the 12th fret. So just kind of doing that. Just bringing everything up an octave. Those are called harmonics. We can talk about that some other time, but I'm sure most of you guys know about that. Now, the reason we're setting up a bass is so you can play better. There's other reasons too, because if it's not set up right, as you go up the neck, it's going to get sharper, the notes. Because if the neck is bowed too much, that's what happens. The first thing you have to do is tune the bass, really important, and then we have to adjust the truss rod. I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little area right in here. It's going to be really hard to capture on the camera, but you basically put your wrench into that hole, okay? And I have one of these wrenches, which I think are great. This size is 4mm for this particular bass. This is a Miura bass, and that's what it takes. And what we're adjusting is the truss rod. The truss rod is this rod that runs down the length of the fingerboard here. And some basses actually have two truss rods, so you can adjust you know, the higher strings on the bass and the lower strings, you know, separately. But most modern basses just have one. Like Rickenbacker's had two. Rickenbacker 4001s had two. And some Yamaha basses have two 6 strings and stuff like that. So once in a while you'll see it. If it's a graphite neck, Moses makes a graphite neck that has adjustable truss rod, but most just have one truss rod, and most graphite necks don't have any truss rod at all. And that's good and bad, because I've played a lot of graphite neck basses where they have moved and you cannot adjust them anymore. And I think being able to adjust the neck is sort of important because it depends on your playing. How you want to play, how you want to sound, it's a big thing how the instrument feels. If you have a neck bow, in other words, if the neck is bowed this way, if you can see that, I'm trying to get the right angle here, the strings will be up like this, basically. But you know, you can't just look at it, it's an optical illusion. So, and now what I want you to do is get a capo. What you want to do is put the capo on the 1st fret, or basically right before the 1st fret, like that, okay? What we're doing is we're locking down these strings. I'll show you a trick how to do it without this, but when you're starting out learning how to adjust something, this is the best way, because if you just look down the neck like this, you'll never be able to tell if it's straight or not. It's just an optical illusion. It's not going to work. You lock down that 1st fret, and now just like put your right hand finger on where the neck joint meets the bass. And now what I'm doing now is I'm going to the 7th fret, 3rd, 5th, here's the 7th fret, and I'm looking at how much space I have in there. And I don't want a lot. And I'm looking at all the strings. You know, if your bass has a really good neck, the spacing will be the same all the way across. Now, if the strings are just flat on the neck and you can't move anything, they're like that, well, that means your neck has usually a back bow. It's bowed the wrong way. And you know, a lot of the frets will buzz out. You know, you won't get a good bass tone that way. So for me, just my personal thing, I have it at 11 thousandths of an inch. And how do I know that? Well, you buy one of these spark plug feeler gauge. I don't know if you can see what that says on there, but it'll say 0.011 or 0.279 millimeters. So, you know, most guys have it between 9 and 13, I would say. The flatter it is, just for me, I get more bass tone, a fatter tone maybe. I'm not really sure. And I can play a little harder without it buzzing. And then if the neck is really straight, it'll just start buzzing out. But that can be good too. I mean, that's like more of like a Stanley Clark thing. Some guys have it flat right on the board. I used to play with Brian Bromberg, and his bass is like right on the board, and he sounds great. So it's really a preference thing. You just have to figure out which style you do. If you're tapping, you probably want it a little lower, you know, a straighter neck. But I like it, you know, 11, 10, somewhere in there. I'm really happy. Okay, and that's how you do it. And if you don't have a capo, well, what I do is I just put my first finger there, and then I put my pinky where it meets over here, and then I just kind of look at the 7th fret. And I kind of do it by eye now. And I do this every time I play the bass. Every time I go to a gig while I'm setting up, I check. You know, the thing is, if it's really humid out, like I live in Los Angeles, so it's not that humid. So it doesn't move that often, but when I used to live in Miami, if it rained or something, you know, this is a maple board and it's finished, but ebony, any kind of board, you know, it's gonna, even this maple will still absorb moisture. And what happens when it absorbs moisture, it wants to expand because the wood is dry, it wants to expand. So what happens is you get a back bow. So I end up having to loosen the neck. That's how it works basically. If it's back bow, you loosen the neck, you go counterclockwise on this truss rod. Or if you want to tighten the neck, generally it's clockwise. And that goes for Fenders and a lot of basses. My Padula is a little bit different. It goes the other way. So you just have to check with the manufacturer and make sure you know what you're doing. And now let's actually move the truss rod now. So yeah, right now I don't have to move it. It's really good. But if I was going to move it, here's a little trick that I learned from the great Michael Padula. Michael Padula. He showed me this trick years ago. You put your feet over here, and the reason why we're doing it like this is there's a lot of pressure on the truss rod, these strings. It's hundreds of pounds of pressure. And the guys will break a truss rod every once in a while, maybe on a vintage Fender, some of the older truss rods, or even modern truss rods, that can happen. So what you want to do is you want to help the truss rod. And if you put your feet here like this, I don't know if you can see that. I have 1 foot here and 1 foot over here. And I'm just kind of, my knee is on the back of the neck here, right where it kind of meets around the 12th fret or so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back on the neck with my left hand. You can see the strings flexing. I think you can. Hope you can. Like right now they're on the fingerboard, and now they're off. And what I'm trying to do is just loosen. So if I was going to tighten this neck, I would pull back a little bit and put the truss rod wrench in. And one thing you want to always do is you want to loosen it a little bit, and then maybe go a quarter turn, or even less than that. So when I'm turning this truss rod, I'm going like that. That's all I'm going. I'm not going a full quarter. I'm kind of going maybe an eighth. And then I'm going to try it out. And when you try it out, of course, now your tuning's all messed up, so you have to tune all over again. So you tune all over again, and then you check it again. You do everything we just did. And when you have it at the neck angle you like, then you're going to change the string height. You're going to adjust the strings. So you can't do anything until the neck is straight. Everything else is a waste of time, or at least you have the neck at the angle that you want. That's like that's the first step. So tuning's the number one thing. Then you adjust the neck, and then if it's still buzzing, then you just raise the strings. And if it's not buzzing enough for you, and what I mean by not buzzing enough, I like it where I can play anything that's clean. But if I want to, let me plug in. But if I wanted to kind of, you know, I want everything clean there, right? But if I wanted to play like, you know, if I wanted a little more growl, I want it to be able to do that. Like I want that in there. So you have to find that neck angle that you like, and that's a preference thing. I can't tell you exactly, you know, I like it between 9 and 11 thousandths of an inch. Everybody's different. you know, and you'll find your own thing. Everybody has their own voice, and that's the whole name of the game, right? You're trying to find your inner voice and translate it through your instrument. You want to get your neck angle, you want to figure out what it is, and you'll probably find it by trying out different basses, and your friend's bass, it might play really good, you can check the angle. So now when you pick up someone's bass, first thing you should do, put your finger on that first fret, and then your pinky, like where the neck meets the wood of the neck, or excuse me, where the body meets the neck. And then kind of go like that and see where it's at. One word to the wise, if you have a lot of bow, like in other words, if there's a lot of space in between here, it's kind of cool. It has a whole different vibe, but as you go up the neck, you're going to go sharp because the string is so high that you have to push down a lot, and it's going to bend the string. So that's a concern to think about if you solo a lot and you're up here in the higher register of the bass. Okay? All right, that's good for that portion of it. Let's go on to the next section. Okay, guys, what we're looking at now is a 62 Fender Jazz Bass reissue. It's from the early 90s, I believe. It's the truss rod, where you're going to adjust the truss rod here is right over here. It's at the end of the neck of most Fenders. Not all Fenders, but a lot of Fenders, it's going to be over here. Some will have it at the same place the Miura bass had at the top of the headstock. But I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little gap in there. And a lot of Fenders do not come, back in the old days, you'd have to take the neck off to adjust the neck. So, you know, even with this one was the same thing. So I just had that routed out. If you take it to any good repairman, what they do is they just route it out and then put some black paint in there. And this way you can get a wrench in easily and be able to adjust it. An easy way to remember this, like if you want to tighten the neck on a Fender, just if it's clockwise, so you want to go this direction, okay? So that would be clockwise. And if you remember, like go to the G string, that would tighten the neck. And if you go into the E string, that loosens the neck. That's a good way to remember that. So I'm assuming now your neck is in the proper place, the way you like it, and you've tuned it up again. Everything's in tune. And now let's talk about some ways to make it play, you know, a lot better. And first, you know, we're gonna strobe tune, we're gonna do all that. But first, what I want to do is I want to concentrate on the nut over here. There's a lot of pressure going over this part right here, and especially if you're using round wounds. They sort of act almost like a hacksaw cutting into the nut. This is a bone nut. Some nuts are made of plastic, some nuts are made of different materials. Brass nuts are also pretty cool. I like the sound of the bone ones for some reason. They just seem to transfer more of an organic thing for me. But what I do, a lot of people use graphite powder. This stuff is really hard to work with because you'll try to put it in there and it'll just go all over the place. And it'll stay in the wood, it'll stay in the bone, it'll stay in your fingerboard if you have a maple fingerboard. So I kind of don't do it this way anymore. What I use is, I have one of these GraphicGear 1000 made by Pentel. This is my writing pencil basically. And I like it for a couple reasons. I don't know if you can see this, but there's the lead coming out, right? Okay. And then when you're done with it, you push this button in the back, and now the tip is, it won't bend. A lot of other mechanical pencils will bend. So there's a little button right there that releases that. So it's kind of cool. So what I do is, because this is made out of graphite, I lubricate the nut with this graphite. Pencils used to be made out of lead. Probably kids were stabbing each other in first grade, and they decided to, instead of getting lead poisoning, let's just use graphite. And it works really good. You want to get like the lightest, you know, softer, the softer the better, soft graphite. And then what you want to do is just go down the line here, do every string until you're finished. And that'll make a difference, especially when you're tuning, you won't get caught in the nut, which happens sometimes. It'll be a smoother tuning experience. So, you know, I'm just trying to bequeath some bass secrets to you. And I hope this is one that you haven't heard of before, and I think it would help you, help your tuning and just, you know, performing in general. Okay, guys, I want to just give you a little bass secret here, especially with Fenders. And I'm going to do a whole tutorial, I think, on actually changing strings, believe it or not. because it is an art and you want to do it in a way that you stay in tune. So it would be a little long to do that right now, but I just want to give you a little tip here, especially Fender basses. These strings are barely long enough to go all the way over here. Usually the G string is a lot shorter than it should be, and you end up not even having to cut any excess. And what I do is, as a little tip, I do this. I fold the string, if you can see that on the camera, like that on the end, so it grips better, because the hole, I don't know if you can see the hole in this tuner, but it's a big old hole. And what tends to happen with Fenders, at least, is they will slip. The G string will slip. So, and what you want to do is, you just basically use some pliers and just crimp this end of it over here like this. When you take the string out of the, when you put the strings on, just do a little bit of a little bend there with a pair of pliers, and then push it in. And there you have it. It just grips a lot better. It's sort of like a spring-loaded grip. And then tune this guy up, and then you're ready to go. Okay, and then just kind of keep the string pressure down, and that should do it. Okay, and you want it to be, again, I'll do a string tutorial, but string changing tutorial, but you want the windings to be nice and tight on the bottom. It's lucky if you can get 2. You want to get like 3, but if you don't have enough string, you do that little trick. See, the rest of them I have at least 3 windings.